The silent occupation. Commander Eliza Reynolds stood at the observation deck of the International Space Defense Station, her silhouette stark against the backdrop of Earth's blue-green sphere. 10 years had passed since the Arcadian Alliance made first contact with humanity, promising a new era of prosperity and advancement. 10 years of what the world believed was peaceful cooperation. 10 years of lies. Eliza's fingers tightened around the data crystal in her palm, a tiny thing to contain such devastating truth. The holographic display on her wrist blinked with an incoming message. Council meeting in 5. They're asking about the anomalies again. Tell them I'm on my way, she replied, sliding the crystal into a hidden compartment in her uniform. She couldn't trust anyone now, not even her fellow officers, not after what she discovered. The Arcadians had arrived on Earth with grand promises. Their sleek ships appeared simultaneously over every major city, broadcasting messages of peace in perfect human languages. They offered advanced technology, medical breakthroughs, and protection against what they called the hostilities of an uncaring cosmos. In exchange, they requested only cultural exchange and, eventually, human assistance in their peacekeeping operations. The United Earth government had eagerly signed the Treaty of New Geneva. Humanity became a developing member of the Arcadian Alliance, a promising species to be guided toward full galactic citizenship. Eliza, then a young lieutenant, had watched the ceremonies with hope in her heart. Space travel, alien civilizations, it was everything she had dreamed of since childhood. She had volunteered immediately when the Arcadians opened positions for human officers in their fleets. For 8 years, she had served with distinction, learning their technology, their tactics, their supposed values. She had believed in their mission. Until the Sirius incident. 3 human colonies in the Sirius system had been attacked by what the Arcadians called outlier forces, species from beyond Alliance space. Eliza led a defensive operation that cost 1,500 human lives. They held the line, but barely. When reinforcements finally arrived, her fleet was decimated. The Arcadian High Council summoned her for commendation. She went expecting recognition for humanity's sacrifice, perhaps even the announcement that Earth would finally be granted full membership status. Instead, through a security breach in their systems, she discovered the truth. It was no accident. Her access to the Arcadian Central Database had been temporarily elevated during the award ceremony. A misrouted file, a strategic assessment from before the Sirius incident, revealed the Arcadians' true intentions. The file contained species expendability metrics. Humans ranked at the bottom, below even their synthetic servitors. Further digging revealed more. The outlier attack had been known months in advance. The Arcadians had deliberately positioned human forces as cannon fodder, calculating that human losses would be more acceptable than risking their own kind. Commander Reynolds, Admiral Zorax, greeted her as she entered the council chamber. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence. What she once thought indicated respect, but now recognized as barely concealed condescension. "Admiral," she replied, keeping her expression neutral. "You wanted to discuss the anomalies in Sector 7. Yes, curious readings. Perhaps another outlier incursion." His voice carried no concern. "Of course not. If the threat was real, they'd send humans to die for them again." "My team is investigating," she lied smoothly. There were no anomalies. It was a diversion she had created to buy time. "Good. The Council expects a full report by tomorrow." Zorax turned away, dismissing her. Eliza left the chamber, her pace measured despite the rage boiling inside her. In her quarters, she activated a signal jammer, supposedly for privacy, though the Arcadians monitored everything. But this jammer was special, developed in secret by Dr. James Harker, one of the few humans she trusted with the truth. When she was certain the room was secure, she accessed her private console and sent an encrypted message. "The Phoenix rises at midnight. Across Earth and its colonies, 37 humans received the message. Scientists, military officers, engineers, all of them united by the discovery of Arcadian betrayal. They called themselves the Earthborn Vanguard. 3 hours later, Eliza boarded a shuttle bound for Earth, ostensibly for a routine inspection of the Moscow defense grid. The grid was one of 12 planetary defense systems gifted by the Arcadians, supposedly to protect Earth from external threats. In reality, as Eliza had discovered, they contained backdoors that would allow the Arcadians to neutralize all Earth defenses with a single command. Dr. Harker met her at the landing pad, his weathered face grim beneath false pleasantries for the benefit of watching eyes. "Commander, welcome back to Earth. The inspection team is ready." "Excellent, Doctor. Let's not waste time." Inside the secure facility, surrounded by technology that hummed with Arcadian energy signatures, they spoke in whispers despite the protection of Harker's jammers. "Project Firewall is ready," Harker said, leading her to a sealed laboratory deep within the complex. "We've reverse-engineered their neural interface technology. Not only can we block their monitoring, but we can feed them false data. And the defense grid. We can sever their backdoor access without triggering their alerts, but only for 72 hours before their systems detect the change." Eliza nodded, studying the schematics displayed on Harker's screen. "Then we have 3 days to implement Phase 1. Phase 1 was already in motion. Across the solar system, human engineers with loyalties to Earth First were subtly altering Arcadian technology, inserting their own backdoors, preparing for the moment when humanity would reclaim its independence. "There's something else," Harker said, his voice dropping further. "We found their research facility." Eliza's breath caught. "Where?" "Antarctica. Underground. They've disguised it as a collaborative scientific outpost, but our people discovered restricted areas. Massive power consumption. Strange readings. What are they doing there?" Harker's face darkened. "We don't know yet, but whatever it is, they're going to extraordinary lengths to hide it." That night, as the southern hemisphere faced away from the watching stars, a small team of 5 humans approached the Antarctic facility. Eliza led them personally, dressed in cold weather gear that concealed their identities and equipment specially designed to bypass Arcadian security. The facility stood isolated on the ice, its sleek architecture distinctly alien despite attempts to incorporate human design elements. Official records listed it as Harmonic Research Station, a joint human-Arcadian project studying climate patterns. "Remember," Eliza whispered to her team as they approached a maintenance entrance, "we're here to gather intelligence only. No confrontation unless absolutely necessary." Using access codes provided by their infiltrators within the Arcadian administration, they entered the facility through a service tunnel. The outer levels appeared as expected, laboratories with human and Arcadian scientists working on climate models, atmospheric studies, oceanographic research. But beneath this veneer of cooperation, secured behind doors that didn't appear on any official blueprint, they found the truth. "Dear God," whispered Lieutenant Catry, one of Eliza's most trusted officers, as they entered a vast chamber hidden beneath the ice. Row upon row of hibernation pods filled the space, each containing a human body. Men, women, even children. Thousands of them, connected to machinery that pulsed with Arcadian energy signatures. Nearby consoles displayed data in the flowing script of the Arcadian language. "What is this?" Chatry's voice shook with horror and rage. Eliza approached one of the consoles, using a translator device developed by the Resistance. The data made her blood run cold. "They're experimenting on us," she said, her voice hollow. "Genetic modifications, neural reprogramming, testing our adaptability to different environments." "Why?" Eliza navigated deeper into the files, translating as she went. When she found the answer, she almost wished she hadn't. "They're not preparing us for membership," she said finally. "They're preparing us for servitude." The Arcadian Alliance had done this before. Species after species brought into their fold, manipulated, modified, and ultimately enslaved. Their unique traits exploited, their populations controlled, their worlds stripped of resources. Earth wasn't being welcomed into a galactic community. It was being processed for consumption, and the humans who served in their fleets, who died in their wars, they were being evaluated for combat efficiency, their genetic material harvested to create the perfect soldiers, disposable human weapons programmed for absolute loyalty to the Alliance. "We need to document everything," Eliza ordered, fighting to keep her voice steady. "And then we implement firewall. Immediately." They worked quickly, copying data, taking samples, recording evidence of the Arcadians' true intentions. As they prepared to leave, an alarm suddenly blared through the facility. "We've been compromised," Treachery hissed, checking his scanner. "Security forces converging from all directions. Alternate exit," Eliza commanded, leading them down a service corridor. "Activate your jammers." They ran through the bowels of the facility, the sound of pursuing Arcadian guards growing closer. When they reached a sealed door blocking their escape, Eliza made a decision. "Lieutenant, the data crystal. Take the team and get this to Harker. I'll create a diversion." "Commander." "That's an order," she snapped, drawing her sidearm. A human weapon, not the Arcadian-issued stunner she usually carried. "Humanity needs to know the truth. Go." As her team escaped through the maintenance tunnel, Eliza turned to face her pursuers. She wasn't planning to die. Not yet. There was too much work to be done. But she needed to buy time, and she needed the Arcadians to believe their secret was still safe. When the guards rounded the corner, weapons raised, she dropped her gun and raised her hands. "Commander Reynolds," the lead Arcadian said, his voice modulated to express shock. "Explain your presence in a restricted area." "I receive reports of unusual energy signatures," she lied smoothly. "As liaison to the Defense Council, it's my duty to investigate potential security breaches." The Arcadian's secondary eyelids narrowed in suspicion. "Alone? Without authorization?" "I have level 7 clearance," she replied, letting irritation show in her voice. "Or does the Alliance no longer trust its human officers?" It was a calculated challenge. The Arcadians were obsessed with maintaining the illusion of trust and cooperation. Accusing them of discrimination would force them to backpedal. As expected, the guard's posture shifted. "Of course, Commander. However, protocols must be followed. You will accompany us to speak with Facility Director Nerett." Eliza nodded, appearing appropriately chastened while inwardly victorious. Her team had escaped with the evidence. Phase 1 of humanity's resistance was now irreversibly in motion. And soon, very soon, the Arcadian Alliance would learn why humans had survived on Earth for thousands of years despite all odds, because when pushed to the brink, humanity didn't break. It evolved. It adapted. It fought back. And it won. The Uprising. 3 months after the Antarctic discovery, Commander Eliza Reynolds stood in the command center of humanity's hidden fortress, a repurposed mining facility deep within the asteroid belt. Around her, screens displayed real-time feeds from across the solar system. Earth, the lunar colonies, Mars, the Jupiter stations, all still appearing normal to Arcadian observers, thanks to Project Firewall. "Status report," she demanded, her voice steady despite the weight of what they were about to attempt. Dr. Harker stepped forward, his fingers dancing across a holographic interface. "Firewall is operating at optimal efficiency. The Arcadians still believe their monitoring systems are functioning normally." "And our forces?" Colonel Weizhong, formerly of the Chinese Space Command and now Eliza's second-in-command, answered, "All cells report ready. Operation Thunderstrike can commence on your order." Eliza looked around the room at the faces of the Earthborn Vanguard leadership, scientists, soldiers, engineers, diplomats. In 3 months, their movement had grown from 37 original members to over 15,000, all of them working in absolute secrecy, preparing for this moment. "What about the civilians?" she asked. "The emergency shelters are prepared," responded Dr. Anaya Singh, head of their Civilian Protection Division. "When we trigger the planetary alert system, they'll have 30 minutes to reach safety before the Arcadians realize what's happening." Eliza nodded, then turned to the final member of her command team. Thora, an Arcadian defector who had contacted the Resistance after discovering the truth about her own government. Thora's presence had been controversial at first, but her knowledge of Arcadian systems and tactics had proven invaluable. Their response? Eliza asked. Thora's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture of solemnity. Once they realize what's happening, they'll deploy their battle fleet, 7 capital ships, plus support vessels. They'll attempt to re-establish control of the defense grid first, then target our military installations. And your people? The other defectors? 23 ships have confirmed they will stand with humanity, Thora replied. Not enough to challenge the fleet directly, but enough to create confusion and delay their response. Eliza took a deep breath, feeling the weight of billions of lives resting on her next words. Begin the countdown. Project Firewall goes live in 30 minutes. Send the alert. Throughout the solar system, encrypted messages flashed to resistance cells. On Earth, the emergency broadcast system suddenly activated, delivering a carefully crafted message. Attention all citizens. This is not a drill. Proceed immediately to designated emergency shelters. Remain calm and follow all instructions. This is not a drill. The message played in every language, on every device, bypassing normal governmental channels. And alongside it, a second message spread through secure networks to those who had joined the resistance. The Phoenix rises. Thunderstrike is go. In the orbit above Earth, Lieutenant Commander Sato led a team of engineers aboard the Arcadian flagship Celestial Harmony. For 3 years, he had served as a human liaison officer, earning the trust of his alien superiors. Now he moved with purpose through the ship's corridors, his Arcadian-issued uniform concealing human-made technology beneath. Engineering inspection. He told the guards at the entrance to the ship's power core, presenting credentials that identified him as authorized personnel. The guards nodded, their attention already diverted by alerts beginning to flash on their consoles, the first signs that something was happening on Earth. Inside the power core, Sato and his team worked quickly, attaching small devices to key junction points in the ship's systems. Similar scenes played out across every Arcadian vessel in Earth orbit as sleeper agents activated years in the making. On Earth's surface, as civilians rushed to shelters, resistance cells moved into position around Arcadian installations. In Washington, Beijing, Moscow, New Delhi, and a dozen other capitals, human security forces that had trained under Arcadian oversight suddenly turned their weapons on their supposed allies. The element of surprise was total. Before the Arcadian High Command could comprehend what was happening, 40% of their Earth-based personnel were already contained, their communications severed, their weapons neutralized. In orbit, Sato completed his mission and gave the signal. Throughout the Arcadian fleet, the devices activated simultaneously. Ship after ship suddenly lost power, their systems crashing as carefully engineered viruses tore through their networks. Not enough to destroy them, that wasn't the plan, but enough to blind them, to confuse them, to buy precious time. In the Asteroid Belt Command Center, Eliza watched it all unfold with grim satisfaction. Phase 1 complete, she announced. Begin Phase 2. Phase 2 revealed humanity's hidden strength. Ships built in secret, weapons developed by reverse engineering Arcadian technology, defensive systems unknown to their former overlords. From concealed bases on Mars, from hidden facilities in the asteroid belt, from bunkers deep beneath Earth's surface, humanity's armada emerged. They weren't as large as the Arcadian ships, nor as technologically advanced in every respect, but they had been designed with one specific purpose: to exploit the weaknesses that Thora and other defectors had revealed. The Arcadians reeled from the sudden attack, their carefully constructed system of control collapsing around them. In orbit, their capital ships struggled to restore power while facing attacks from vessels they hadn't known existed. On Earth, their installations were being systematically captured or neutralized. And then came the broadcast, Eliza's face appearing on every screen across the solar system, her message transmitting on all frequencies, even breaking into the Arcadian emergency channels. People of Earth, citizens of human colonies throughout the solar system, and members of the Arcadian Alliance, I am Commander Eliza Reynolds of the Earthborn Vanguard. For 10 years, humanity has lived under the illusion of a beneficial alliance with the Arcadian civilization. Today, that illusion ends. The broadcast continued, showing evidence of the Arcadians' true intentions: the Antarctic facility, the genetic experimentation, the deliberate sacrifice of human lives, the plans for eventual subjugation. We do not seek war, Eliza continued, her voice steady and resolute. But we will no longer accept deception. We will no longer be pawns in your games of power. As of this moment, Earth declares its independence from the Arcadian Alliance. Any act of aggression against our world or our people will be met with the full force of humanity's resolve. In the Arcadian High Council chambers on their homeworld of Arcadia Prime, High Councilor Zinar watched the broadcast with growing horror. How is this possible? He demanded of his advisors. How could they hide such preparations from us? It appears they used our own monitoring technology against us, one advisor replied, mandibles clicking in agitation. Feeding us false data while they built their resistance. The defense fleet. Compromised. 40% of our ships in the Sol system are reporting critical systems failures. The rest are under attack from both human vessels and our own ships. Our own ships. Zenar's secondary eyelids snapped open in shock. Defectors, High Counselor. Led by Sub-Commander Thora, Zenar's mind raced. This was unprecedented. In the 12,000 years of the Alliance's expansion, no developing species had ever mounted such an effective resistance. The humans had been evaluated as primitive, manageable, a useful source of genetic material and labor, nothing more. Clearly, they had been catastrophically wrong. Deploy the reserve fleet, he ordered finally. Crush this rebellion before it spreads to other developing worlds. But the reserve fleet would take days to reach the Sol system, days during which humanity consolidated its position. Back in Earth orbit, the battle reached its climax as the remaining functional Arcadian warships attempted to break through to the planet's surface. They were met by a wall of human vessels, smaller but more numerous, using tactics the Arcadians had never encountered before. Human ships didn't maintain formation like Arcadian vessels. They swarmed, they scattered, they performed maneuvers that seemed suicidal, until they suddenly weren't. They used decoys and false signals, creating sensor ghosts that confused Arcadian targeting systems. And they had one more advantage: Thora's knowledge of Arcadian command codes. As the battle raged, human hackers used these codes to transmit conflicting orders to the Arcadian fleet, causing chaos in their command structure. Aboard the human flagship Defiance, Colonel Jung coordinated the defense. They're trying to break through to Washington sector, he reported to Eliza via secure channel. 3 capital ships, still partially disabled but regaining function. Deploy Sunstrike, Eliza ordered. Jung hesitated for just a moment. Authorized. From the lunar surface, concealed installations powered up. What the Arcadians had believed were mining operations were actually massive electromagnetic pulse weapons, designed specifically to target the unique energy signatures of Arcadian technology. The pulse hit the advancing ships like a tsunami. Their shields, designed to repel physical weapons and energy beams, offered no protection against this specialized attack. Systems crashed, weapons went offline, and engines failed. All Arcadian vessels are disabled, Jung reported, his voice tight with controlled excitement. Boarding teams are moving to secure them now. In the Asteroid Belt Command Center, Eliza allowed herself a moment of satisfaction before addressing the next crisis. Status of the Antarctic facility. Secured, Dr. Singh replied. All test subjects are being freed and transported to medical facilities. The research data has been downloaded to our secure servers. And the Arcadian staff. Contained. No casualties on either side. Eliza nodded. Despite everything the Arcadians had done, she had given strict orders to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. This wasn't about revenge. It was about freedom. 48 hours after Operation Thunderstrike began, the solar system was effectively under human control. The remaining Arcadian personnel had surrendered, their ships captured, their installations secured. The few vessels that escaped were racing back to Arcadia Prime with news of their defeat. "The reserve fleet is still coming," Thora warned during the emergency council meeting. "They'll arrive in approximately 3 days." "Can we win against them?" asked one of the council members, a former United Nations representative. "In a direct confrontation, no," Eliza answered honestly. "They outnumber and outgun us, but we're not fighting on their terms anymore." She activated a holographic display showing a massive construction project taking place in Earth orbit, a ring of satellites surrounding the planet. "Project Aegis," she explained. "A planetary defense system of our own design, incorporating modified Arcadian technology alongside human innovations. Once activated, it will create an impenetrable energy field around Earth. Nothing gets in or out without our permission." "And the colonies?" "Mars, the Jupiter stations, similar systems, scaled appropriately. We can't stop the reserve fleet from entering the solar system, but we can deny them any strategic targets." The council deliberated, voices rising in debate, until Dr. Harker raised his hand for silence. "There's another option," he said quietly, "one that doesn't rely solely on defense." All eyes turned to him as he nodded to Thora, who stepped forward. "The Arcadian Alliance isn't as unified as they want you to believe," she explained. "Many worlds chafe under their rule. Many species have discovered, as I did, the truth behind their promises of protection and prosperity." "You're suggesting what?" Eliza asked, already seeing where this was leading. "An alliance of our own," Thora replied. "Not built on deception and exploitation, but on mutual respect and genuine cooperation. The news of your successful rebellion is already spreading through subspace channels. Other worlds are watching, waiting to see if humanity truly breaks free. And if we do, they will follow. The Orderi, the Vesh, the Tellurians, all developing species like yourselves, all gradually discovering the truth. Together, you would be a force even the reserve fleet would hesitate to engage." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. This was no longer about one species fighting for independence. This was about reshaping the power structure of a significant portion of the galaxy. "We need to send envoys," Eliza said finally, "immediately, to each of these worlds. And we need to prepare a message for the Arcadian High Council. Not a threat, but an invitation to negotiate, on equal terms." 3 days later, when the Arcadian reserve fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system, they found not just a defended Earth, but a coalition of ships from 6 different species, all formerly under Arcadian control, all now declaring their independence. And in orbit around Earth, aboard a neutral vessel provided by the Vesh, Eliza Reynolds sat across from High Counselor Zinar himself, who had made the unprecedented decision to come in person. "You understand," Zinar said, his voice modulated to convey diplomatic calm despite his rage, "that what you propose changes 12,000 years of established order." "The established order was built on lies," Eliza replied evenly. "It's time for a new approach. And if we refuse, if we decide to make an example of Earth." Eliza's expression didn't change. "Then you'll face not just humanity, but a coalition of species who have all reached the same conclusion, that freedom is worth fighting for. You might win eventually, through sheer numbers, but the cost would be devastating, and the secret would be out. How many more of your developing members would rise up when they learn the truth?" For a long moment, Zinar was silent, his 4 eyes studying her with an intensity that would have once intimidated her. Now she met his gaze steadily, unflinching. "You humans," he said finally, "are remarkably unpredictable. This quality was not sufficiently accounted for in our assessments. That was your first mistake. Eliza replied. One of many. The negotiations lasted for weeks, with representatives from all the coalition species participating. In the end, the Arcadian Alliance formally recognized the independence of Earth and its colonies, along with the 5 other worlds that had joined the coalition. A new interstellar organization was formed, the Sovereign Worlds Accord, based on principles of genuine equality and mutual respect. 1 year after Operation Thunderstrike, Eliza stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Unity Station, watching as representatives from 23 species gathered for the first full assembly of the Accord. The Arcadians were there too, no longer as rulers but as equals, a transition that continued to cause political turmoil in their society. Dr. Harker joined her at the window, his face reflecting the starlight. Did you ever imagine this outcome when you first discovered their deception? Eliza smiled slightly. Not in my wildest dreams. I just wanted Earth to be free. And now we're helping to reshape half the galaxy. That's humanity for you, she replied, watching as the Earth rotated slowly beneath them, beautiful and free. We never just settle for survival. We insist on changing the rules of the game. In the council chamber beyond, the assembly was called to order. A new chapter in galactic history beginning, sparked by one species that refused to accept its assigned place in someone else's vision of the cosmos. Humanity had struck back against betrayal not just with force, but with vision, and in doing so, had changed the stars themselves.